Hey, what's up, everybody? This is This Machine Kills Fascists. I am your facilitator, Dorian Wallace, he, him, composer, music therapist, and piano player. And we're using this space to talk about various issues regarding fascism and or the healing arts practices within liberation spaces. So today, we're not going to have any guests again, but what I'm going to be doing is, let me just pull it up here, uh, is we're going to be looking at a concept that I utilize in my own practice, and it's just a good concept to understand when doing this sort of liberation work. But I just pulled it up on the screen for those of you that are watching. Uh, And for those of you that are listening, I'm going to describe everything that pops up on the screen. So cool. So this is a concept that I devised. It's called the Praxis Wheel. And the idea behind the Praxis Wheel is that it's an ongoing cycle. Let me actually just read the first little piece about how to describe how this works. So for those unfamiliar with my work, my name is Dorian Wallace, and I'm a board-certified music therapist and composer deeply engaged in end-of-life care, carceral justice, and trauma recovery. This work has led me into spaces such as hospice care, prisons, and communities of survivors of systemic, cultic, and narcissistic abuse. My guiding goal is to engage with care responsively, intentionally, and through practices that support healing rather than impose it. Over time, I developed a framework that to help navigate these complex systems with integrity, transparency, and genuine respect. I now share this framework with other liberation-oriented trauma-informed practitioners, mental health workers, artists, activists, organizers, facilitators, and all who engage in work that centers on healing and liberation. So again, this is the actual Praxis Wheel here. The Praxis Wheel is a conceptual tool designed to serve as a compass for therapeutic and activist work in real time. It offers guidance for ethical, responsive, and culturally grounded engagement in liberatory practice. This framework helps facilitators stay rooted in their purpose and direction while remaining flexible and adaptive to their community's evolving needs. I've also attached if you're on the Substack article, but you'll see that I've attached color and black and white PNG and PDFs, as well as a link to my Redbubble store if you want a higher quality version of these images. So a big piece is the wheel and the axis. So at the center of your praxis wheel is your axis, and this is your primary medium for engaging with the world. This could be music, could be art, therapy, education, mutual aid, spiritual companionship, any embodied practice rooted in care. So you'll notice here, my axis in the center of this picture of this praxis wheel, the axis, I have it labeled as music because music tends to be my oriented centering in regards to how I engage with the world and with activism and within just the participants that we're working with. So continuing to read, for me, that axis is almost always music. It has always been the foundation of how I relate to others and navigate through the world. So whatever your axis, it serves as your center of progressive motion, your steady point of engagement with your community. So the wheel is always in motion. It's adaptive, it's relational, and it's progressive by design. It's always moving forward. So a few guiding principles. No spoke is more important than another. Each spoke supports and informs the others. And the structure is relational, not hierarchical. And last but not least, always begin with the first spoke, which is the trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive spoke of the wheel. So here's the whole cycle. I'm going to read each spoke, and then I'm going to read each description. So spoke 1 is trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive. Spoke 2 is culturally relevant and identity affirming. Spoke 3 is accessibility, nuanced participation. Spoke 4 is empathetic concern and compassionate action. Spoke 5 is embodied mindfulness. Spoke 6 is educational and transformational practices. Spoke 7 is accountability and collective agency. And spoke 8 is liberatory truth and understanding justice. So I'm going to explain what all of that means. So the first spoke, trauma-informed and trauma-sensitive. So to be trauma-informed, you are recognizing the impact of trauma on the body and integrate that awareness to foster safety, trust, and grounding. So for instance, if you are working with a group of people and you start to speak on a topic that may be triggering, let's say talking about sexual assault or talking about the Israel genocide on the Palestinian people, there are just going to be things that you need to pay attention with your participants. And if you see people starting to wiggle or squirm, they may not even notice that they're squirming, but just be informed on how trauma works and pay attention to how people's bodies move. And alongside being trauma informed is being trauma sensitive. So that is, be flexible to your practice to create emotionally and somatically safe settings that are rooted in compassion and adjusted to community members' needs. Now, you have to know your own strengths and weaknesses. I'm a slightly above average weight, 190 pound white male. That's about what I am. And so because of that, I'm going to move differently than some other folks might move in various spaces, but you have to be aware of your own body, the way that you are positioning yourself when communicating with people, just making sure that people don't feel threatened by you, making sure that you are just giving an energy that things are safe, that you're a safe person to be around. So being trauma informed and trauma sensitive. Part of being trauma sensitive is realizing, like, let's say somebody gets snappy or somebody's rude in a group or in a facilitation setting, and being trauma sensitive, you can actually pull the person aside and talk to them, just help them get some grounding. Just be aware that something that may not be triggering to you could be triggering for someone else. The other thing I want to point out is that there is nothing wrong with triggering people. It is what you do with that trigger and how you respond to the trigger. We cannot prepare for every trigger in the planet. It's not a possible thing. Too many people have been through too many things, too many complicated relationships, too many complicated experiences with other human beings. So we cannot prepare for every piece of trauma trigger that we're trying to be sensitive to. So it is more about making sure that your participant feels safe and your participant feels welcome in the space, and that you are adaptable to those needs. So then we get to the second spoke, culturally relevant and identity affirming. So thing to really process here, being culturally relevant is to honor and hold sacred the lived experiences, practices, and values of your community members. So culture emerges from ancestry, through community relationships, through shared identities, generational experiences, and traditional spiritual traditions. Reason I try to point it out this way is like a prime example of that you can consider like the LGBTQ community to be a community or a culture within itself. And that does not necessarily mean people are even living in the same location or space to be a member of that community or that culture. But the point is that you just got to pay attention to your surroundings. You got to learn about the people that you are serving. Um, if you are serving your own community, the community that you come from, use that information to really help and support. Um, but if you are going into a community that is not of your background, and especially if it is a community that experiences greater socioeconomic deprivation, um, it really is your responsibility as a facilitator to learn as much as you can about the culture. And how do you learn about culture? You talk to people. You don't read about it. You can read about it. You can read about it to enhance your knowledge, but you have to talk to people. You have to talk to your people. You got to find out what music they listen to. You got to find out what TV shows they watch. You got to find out what stuff they do in the holidays with their families. You got to find out what their family structure is like. All of this happens through conversation. And then there's also identity affirming, and this is validate each person's unique identity, stay open to differences and new perspectives, prioritize support for marginalized voices and quieter dispositions. I put that out just to make sure that we're doing a decent job in activist spaces on acknowledging affirmations of people in regards to certain types of communities. But the reason I add the quieter dispositions, people with quieter dispositions, is there are shy people that are going to be in your group and they may want to participate. They may actually have some of the best insights for various things, but they might have a nervousness on participating. So you really have to affirm people's identity. You have to affirm their ethnic origins. You have to affirm their gender expression. You have to affirm them as humans. It's completely important. So this spoke. It's really about making sure that you are open to cultures that differ from your own and identities that differ from your own. I'll give just one. Sorry, my brain kind of went off for a second, but a good example on being culturally affirming. um, so there was a period of time where Black houseless people, Black Americans who were getting picked up off the street and put into psychiatric clinics. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, there was a disproportionate amount of houseless Black men specifically who were being diagnosed with schizophrenia disorder or schizoaffective disorder when in fact they had bipolar disorder. And the reason being was that the white psychiatrists who were realistically being doctors, just being good doctors, they would misread some of the speaking. So if you're talking about your moods, how you may be in a flow one way and a flow another way, or lose that flow, that can really indicate bipolar issues. But then when these men, these Black men who were houseless were beginning to speak about the police state and feeling like they were, like there was just some serious paranoia about the police coming in and trying to harm them, and white psychiatrists label that as paranoia, not understanding that the lived experience of these Black houseless men was that the state was actively trying to harm them. And the white psychiatrist couldn't see it. So this is what I mean, is it's important to pay attention to your culture that you're working with and pay attention to the identities you're working with. We also get to the third spoke, accessibility and nuanced participation. Accessibility, be thoughtful in setting areas, tools, and interactions to ensure that everyone can participate comfortably regardless of ability, experience, or circumstance. So create adjustments when needed. For instance, when I work in hospice care, I have some instruments that like little chimes that older people can just hold, and the chimes make sounds on their own. And so that is just an example of somebody who may not have the movement in their hands to really rock out on a percussion instrument. I have instruments available for my participants to be able to participate even if they're not able to move. That's just an idea of accessibility. Another piece is the nuanced participation. This is on our diverse ways of engaging, allowing for flexible levels of involvement based on participation needs and capacities, and be mindful of friction. So it's really, really, really important to not be so hell-bent on worrying about details that you may find to be the most important. A prime example that I try to think of is being on time to things. I will never, ever, ever mention to a participant if they are late, even if they're 35 minutes late to a group. I will never mention it. Because most people, when they're trying to get to a group like that, they're late because they have other issues going on in their life that have nothing to do with their wanting to be on a group at this group or being responsible. There are many, many, many factors that can go into why a person might be late to a group. And so I have made the decision as a facilitator to not care. I'm just not going to care if people show up late. It's fine. It's fine. Shows up 30 minutes late. Yo, what up? How you doing? You know, everything's good. Yeah. Also, just be mindful. Like, I work in a lot of spaces where there are actively warring gangs with each other. And so there is friction in like sort of those obvious senses, but there's also friction of just anytime you get different people mixing together, you have different genders in a space, you have different ethnicities in a space, you have different socioeconomic uh, places in a space, you have different ages. There's just lots of things to really be aware of. And then there's the fourth spoke, empathetic concern and compassionate action. Empathetic concern, recognize, feel, and care about another person or community's lived experience without judgment. So this is that if we are working in liberation work, we are working in the liberation healing arts specifically, you should make sure that you are empathetic as a rule. You are empathetic, you are concerned with other people. So you recognize that there are other lived experiences. I say this stuff out loud all the time, but when I'm in mostly white communities, I will oftentimes hear about things that supposedly go on in Black majority communities. As somebody who has been in Black majority communities for quite some time now, uh, I've just learned that so much of what I had heard in the white communities about what goes on in Black communities is just not true. Not true at all. There is a diverse, a diverse population of people in all communities, and there is a need to be empathetic to all participants, no matter their background. And you should just make sure that that's a part of your practice. And then the other piece is compassionate action, and this is respond to suffering and injustices with deliberate and competent support, kindness, and solidarity to reduce harm and stimulate healing. So again, it is not enough to just be empathetic. And in fact, I make a point to not put empathy until making sure that the space is safe. You need to make sure the space is trauma informed. You need to make sure that it's a trauma sensitive space. You need to be culturally relevant and identity affirming. You need to have accessibility and nuanced participation. And then, if we're following this wheel, this praxis wheel, we would get to empathetic concern and compassionate action. And this is making sure you are directional with your empathy. It's a concern-oriented empathy when you're working in these spaces, as well as compassionate action, which is empathy turned to action. It is lived empathy. It gets us to embodied mindfulness, the fifth spoke, and make sure to be present. Be into your body's sensations, signals, and rhythms, and be insightful when you feel elevated. So if you feel yourself like rising up, catch yourself. If you feel, if you know, try to be mindful in the way that experiences may come up. You may feel some irritation. Might feel some anger. Let it arise and let it pass away. Just as we do with all sensations in mindfulness. But the point is that we are in work that is engaged. We are in work that is engaged. And so you have to have an embodied mindfulness, which is being aware that it is okay to experience some of the negative emotions and feelings that we may experience towards others, but that these are simply things that can be a bump and a passing away. It does not have to, we do not have to give these sensations more power than they already have. It makes you a better activist as well. Then we're going to get to the sixth spoke, which is educational practices and transformational practices. So to get into the differences of what that means, educational practices provide intentional activities that support learning, critical thinking, and exchange of knowledge. These include awareness of mental health, trauma, and emotional resilience, and examination of systems of power, oppression, and collective liberation. Whereas transformative practices are engaged in practices that confront both internalized and structural oppression while nurturing equity, healing, and liberation. These may include somatic work, ancestral healing, community practices, and other embodied or relational approaches. So I think of it as you're educating people about through political education, as well as you are educating people in regards to psychoeducation. So I oftentimes use music as a way to teach about trauma. Like I'll use, there's a Meek Mill song literally called Trauma that speaks about PTSD and speaks about the plight of the Black man in the prison industrial complex. And I use that song with those lyrics as an opportunity to pass out information regarding the 4 F's of trauma. I'm just making sure that the guys have literature that they can bring back to their cells. And the 4 F's of trauma: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And the point is that we're utilizing music as an educational practice. It's like I am giving you some tools to support your learning. But there's a deeper thing is when you become more aware every time, every time I go up to the prison, let's say up at Sing Sing, for instance, and I always have new information to give the gentleman. I also don't shy away from political education. You need to be talking about Malcolm X when you're inside prisons. You need to be talking about Angela Davis. You need to read Bell Hooks. You need to really study Assata Shakur. You have to study Paulo Freire. You have to study all of these people to really get solid grounding on educational and transformational practices. The most important piece for me about educational practices is that it is the skill building piece of the Praxis Wheel. But notice it is it is after creating a safe space, trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive, culturally relevant, and identity-affirming, accessibility and nuanced participation, empathetic concern and compassionate action, embodied mindfulness, and that is where we leave space for educational practices. People aren't going to learn if they're not in a comfortable space to be able to learn. And so by the time we get to education and actually, people, it's like, now you've learned some things. This is where accountability and collective agency come in. And accountability is the center of the practice of taking ownership of one's actions and their impact with a commitment to repair, growth, and integrity in relationships and communities. I own up to my dance students, for instance, that I have said misogynistic things and sexist things about people that when I was younger in my life. I don't shy away from things that I've done in the past, and it's important to be accountable for your own actions. You have to know when to apologize, which is basically all the time. I think it's important to apologize all the time. I'm also a white man, so that's part of why I might have that feeling. But the point is that you have to be accountable for your actions, and it's important when you're in this work. You can't spread rumors about people. You just can't do that. It's not good. And then collective agency, and this is the shared power to shape decisions, take action, and co-create the future through mutual trust, collective voice, and cooperative effort. There's a really great example. There's an organization called HALA, How Our Lives Link All Together. They're based in Harlem. I am not going to be able to get all the story. Some of this might be a little inaccurate, but the general gist is they are a nonprofit that works around healing justice that was started by a whole bunch of gentlemen who had been incarcerated together and had developed a healing justice program within their own dorm. I don't know which jail or which prison they were at, but just little things like the gentlemen started saying thank you to each other. They started to make a point to be polite. They started to make a point to just be respectful. You do dishes today, I'll do the meal today. Like, just started to divvy things out like that, and literally the whole culture of the dorm shifted. And because of that, they started a nonprofit to get this kind of action and work out into the streets where where these folks come from. And I just think that that's a prime example of there was some collective agency. I always tell people, no matter how many somatic exercises you teach a person, if you're in a situation where other people are actively trying to kill you, no amount of somatic exercises are going to do anything to help regulate the body. And then the final part of the Praxis Wheel, and this is the liberatory truth, understanding, and justice. So liberatory truth, this is the pursuit of truth that centers on the lived experiences of marginalized people, which dominate narratives, have erased, distorted, or muted. I try to put, this goes along with decolonial thought, but you really try to look at where you learn truth from when you're in these spaces. And I have found that I center my perspectives on those of Black women specifically, because as a whole, now there are other groups who have experienced significant oppression in this country. So I'm not going to I do not want this to be taken as a disregard for anything that any other groups have gone through. Whether it be just the amount of oppression that a community experienced, or the type of oppression that a community experienced. But the reason I center Black women in my foundation on understanding liberatory truth is I feel that that is a community of people who have been forced by structural systems to uh, take care of everybody else, and they're not allowed to share or show emotions. There's a stereotype that I am positive my Black women listeners are going to be completely aware of, and others if you're not familiar with the term, but the term is called the angry Black woman, and it is a horrific stereotype. I've witnessed it multiple times where a Black woman was being treated poorly in a workplace environment and spoke up on their behalf for being treated poorly, and that stereotype basically came in to be used against them to keep the powerful in these various job positions in power. Uh, so, just direct firsthand experience, I've seen too much oppression to Black women, and the type of oppression that they're given, but also there is just a deep historic knowledge within this community. Um, there's lots of just mothers. There are a lot of breadwinners. There are a lot of survivors. There are lots of just huge amounts. And again, I'm talking very generalized terms, and I'm talking in ways that can be perceived the wrong way um, if you are not being cognizant with how you do it. But I center my liberatory practices and liberatory truths on Black women as being the voices that I want to make sure I use my power for helping get their voices out stronger than without. So, and then finally is understanding and justice, and this is the cultivation of in-depth awareness of structural harm alongside a commitment to healing, equity, and collective liberation. Now, all of this is really that. I'll give you all just like some food for thought, but uh, you can be a multimillionaire white man and still be a victim of sexual assault. Uh, you can be a homeless, houseless African American trans woman and still carry anti-Semitic and anti-Asian biases, and in fact, even have bigoted views towards other communities. And the reason I point these things out is that we're working with human beings. The point of the Praxis Wheel is that this is giving us some intentional direction with when we're working with human beings. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It is about how do you treat human beings with dignity? How do you treat human beings with dignity? Um, yeah. I'll put it this way. I work in the hospitals here doing hospice care, and very large amount of the nurse population are Black women. A lot of here in New York, especially a lot of Caribbean Black women. And I have just found that for being the best music therapist I possibly can be, I've found it to be essential to learn the nurses I work with, learn their stories, learn their lives, make sure that they feel safe around you, make sure that you are not a danger, that you are literally here as a support, as an accomplice even. So yeah, I don't know. This is really it. A lot of people ask me about the Praxis Wheel. It's like probably my most popular concept that people, students and such, ask me about, wanting to learn more details on. And yeah, so I'll probably have maybe a panel on here with some folks to talk about the various aspects of the Praxis Wheel. But again, If you want to check out any of this, you can just check out my Substack. I'm going to post the article in the show notes for this show. And the most important thing is just remember that these are not fixed concepts. This is a theoretical, and I'm even going to say it's an activist framework, meaning that it is not meant for research. It is not meant necessarily for larger theoretical orientations. This is meant for when you are on the ground working with humans and when you are in the role of a facilitator, whatever that facilitation is. This is just a practical way to conceptualize how to navigate through spaces. So and yeah, you can get these again on my website. I've got free poster downloads as well as the nicer Redbubble shop version of the Praxis Wheel. Again, my name is Dorian Wallace. This is This Machine Kills Fascists. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Elon Musk. Fuck the NYPD. Fuck ICE. Free Palestine. Peace.
This machine kills fascists. 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 Machine kills fascists. This machine kills fascists. This machine kills fascists. This machine kills fascists. This machine kills fascists.